everyone, my name is Allie and welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing part 2 of my most anticipated books of 2023. So in my last video I did get a little bit ambitious and I thought that I could do all 30 books in one video. I know that it's just wild to me, the things that I think of. But I realized pretty quickly that I could not do every single book justice within one video. It was just not going to happen. So we are breaking it up into 3 videos, 10 books each, and now we are in part 2 doing the next 10 books. And I think that we're learning from our past mistakes and we're just going to jump right on in to this list. The first book on this list is The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Tyrant. And this is a mystery, semi-thriller, also a little bit of like a literary fiction vibe, and it sounds really interesting. And with all of these books, I mean, the cover is absolutely gorgeous. So the synopsis of this book says, she's an outsider desperate to belong, but the cost of entry might be her darkest secret in this intoxicating debut of literary suspense following a clique of dangerously ambitious students at the University of Edinburgh. And I love this kind of plot. I am absolutely obsessed with like the very elite and also kind of mysterious kind of cliques within these university settings. I think that, you know what, this goes all the way back to middle school when I was obsessed with the books from the Clique series by Lacey Harrison. I can't remember what her name is. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. But I was obsessed with the Clique books when I was in middle school. And I seriously think that my interest and slight obsession with this kind of narrative stems back to that. And then I also got really into Gossip Girl in high school. So I think that it all just like, you know, it all connects. The next book on this list is Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. And this expected publication is April 4th, 2023. And this is basically exactly what it says. It is a romantic comedy, and I love a romantic comedy. And I've been trying to find more romance books that incorporate that comedic element to make them into a rom-com. And because, you know what, I love rom-coms. They're some of my favorite movies of all time, and I would love to read more books that are similar in nature to those movies. A comedy writer thinks she's sworn off love until a dreamily handsome pop star flips the script on all of her assumptions. Romantic Comedy is a hilarious, observant, and deeply tender novel from New York Times bestselling author Curtis Sittenfeld. Sally Miz is a sketchwriter for The Night Owls, the late-night live comedy show that airs each Saturday. So let's just call it Saturday Night Live. With a couple of heartbreaks under her belt, she's long abandoned the search for love, settling instead for the occasional hookup, career success, and a close friendship with her stepfather to round out a satisfying life. But when Sally's friend and fellow writer Danny Horst begins dating Annabelle, a glamorous actor who guest hosted the show, he joins the not-so-exclusive group of talented but average-looking and even dorky men at the show and in society at large, who've gotten romantically involved with incredibly beautiful and accomplished women. Sally channels her annoyance into a sketch called The Danny Horst Rule, poking fun at this phenomenon while underscoring how unlikely it is that the reverse would ever happen for a woman. Enter Noah Brewster, a pop music sensation with a reputation for dating models, who signed on as both host and musical guest for this week's show. Dazzled by his charms, Sally hits it off with Noah instantly, and as they collaborate on one sketch after another, she begins to wonder whether there might actually be sparks flying. But this isn't a romantic comedy, it's real life, and in real life, someone like him would never date someone like her, right? With her keen observations and trademark ability to bring complex women to life, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that sounds like a really, really interesting book. And I'm kind of getting the vibes that this might be a little bit of like inspired possibly by the whole Pete Davidson thing, because obviously Pete Davidson was on SNL and he is kind of, I don't know, like he's not necessarily what we think of as like the standard of male beauty. By some he might be considered average looking. I don't know. I always find it really hard to talk about these things as a demisexual person because I'm just like, Some might say that this person is attractive. Some might say that this person is average. I don't know. I think he's really interesting looking. That's all I can say about him. And he's funny. I think he's funny at least. But I think that this is definitely sort of inspired by the whole Pete Davidson thing, where he's kind of like this average looking guy that is on a late night comedy show, and he has been dating these absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, breathtaking women. I think that this will be a really interesting book to read. I could see it going one of two ways. Either it's really amazing and it has some really interesting and insightful things to say, or it drops the ball on all of those insightful, interesting things and doesn't really see everything to fruition. So it'll be interesting to see which road this book takes, but I have a good feeling about it. I love the cover, I love the synopsis, and I'm really, really intrigued to see where this book goes. The next book on this list is The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest, and this is a romance book. Super excited about it. And the synopsis says, in this heart-fluttering romance by Christina Forrest, a shy bookworm enlists her charming neighbor to help her score a date, not knowing he's the obscure author she's been corresponding with. I love these kind of premises for books where it's almost like a take on You've Got Mail, where both of them don't really know who they're talking to, but then like one of them kind of finds out and is keeping the secret of like who they're talking to, like that they know each other in a different context. And I love this kind of synopsis. I love this kind of like plot. I just think it's so fun and interesting, and honestly makes for a really good time. It says, shy, bookish, and admittedly awkward, Lily Green has always felt inadequate compared to the rest of her accomplished family, who strive for Black excellence. She dreams of becoming an editor of children's books, but has been frustratingly stuck in the nonfiction division for years without a promotion in sight. Lily finds escapism in her correspondences with her favorite fantasy author, and what begins as two lonely people connecting over email turns into a tentative friendship and possibly something else Lily won't herself entertain until he ghosts her. Months later, still crushed but determined to take charge of her own life, Lily seeks a date to her sister's wedding, and the perfect person to help her is Nick Brown, her charming, attractive new neighbor whom she feels drawn to for unexplainable reasons. Little does she know that Nick is an author, her favorite fantasy author. Nick, who has his reasons for using a pen name and for pushing people away, soon realizes that the beautiful, quiet woman from down the hall is the same Lily he fell in love with over email months ago. Unwilling to complicate things even more between them, he agrees to set her up with someone else, though the simple favor between two neighbors is anything but. Not when he can't get her off of his mind. This is so cute. I'm so excited for this book. I love the cover, like I say, literally every single time. But oh my gosh, I cannot wait to read this. When does it come out? So the expected publication for this book is February 28th, 2023, just in a couple of months. So I'm so excited for this one. I really hope that I'm able to read it, honestly. This one might be in like the top 5 for how excited I am. It just sounds so good, and it really does sound like You've Got Mail. Doesn't it? Like, it really does have that like flavor to it, because not only is it about books, but the main girl wants to be like a children's editor, and they're both into books, and I don't know, it's so cute. It's over email. You've Got Mail is over email, and oh my gosh, I'm ready. I love Nora Ephron, and I want to read more books that have the same flavor, the same vibes as Nora Ephron movies, because I just love them so much, especially When Harry Met Sally. If we can find a book that is similar to When Harry Met Sally, I will die. I will absolutely die, because I love that movie so much. It's definitely my favorite from Nora Ephron, but I mean, I love You've Got Mail too. It's a really good movie. The next book is from an author that I need to read more of, because I read her like first duology. I believe it's her first duology, but that was years ago, and I have not kept up with this author's newer work, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I loved The Queen's Rising back in the day. It was such a good book. I think I read it a couple of years ago, and I I absolutely loved it. However, Rebecca Ross has come out with plenty of books since then, and I have just not picked them up. I have access to them now, but I haven't picked them up yet. I'm trying to evade the light that's coming in right here. I can't do anything about it. It's my blinds are closed. But this book sounds really interesting, and oh my gosh, the cover. It is young adult fantasy / historical fiction, so I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. It says, after centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Roman Kit, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle for her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. So this one sounds really good. Definitely kind of like an enemies to lovers situation, and it's historical, it's fantasy based, and I don't know, I'm really excited about this. I mean, Rebecca Ross, from the 2 books that I've read from her so far, an absolutely phenomenal writer, and I love the way that she developed her romance in her first duology, because while it wasn't like the central plot of the story, she really made me believe in that romance, and I absolutely love it. One of my favorite romances in like a fantasy book ever. It's just so good, so subtle. But I will be really intrigued to read a book where it seems like the romance is kind of integral to the plot. So I don't know, I'm really excited about this one. It sounds really good, and I've heard such amazing things about other Rebecca Ross books that she has put out. I'm so ready for this one. And I mean, it's already had 229 ratings and it's at a 4.59. That's really good. Did I say that it comes out on April 4th, 2023? Because it does. Okay, so back into the adult romance genre, we have Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I love this cover. I love the flowers. I love the pink. It's so pretty. And the synopsis says, when the owner of the local flower shop in Rome, Kentucky makes a questionable agreement with a tattooed bad boy, a delightful friends to lovers romance begins to bloom, from the author of When in Rome and The Cheat Sheet. And it goes on to say, Annie Walker is on a quest to find her perfect match, someone who will nicely complement her happy, quiet life running her flower shop in Rome, Kentucky. Unfortunately, she worries her goal might be too far out of reach when she overhears her date saying she is so unbelievably boring. Is it too late to become flirtatious and fun like the leading ladies in her favorite romance movies? Maybe she only needs a little practice, and Annie has the perfect person in mind to become her tutor. Will Griffin. Will, the flirtatious, tattooed, and absolutely gorgeous bodyguard, is temporarily back in Rome, providing security for Amelia Rose as excitement grows for her upcoming marriage to Noah Walker. He has one personal objective during his time in town: stay away from Annie Walker. But no sooner than he gets settled, Will soon finds himself not only breaking his rule, but tasked with far more than simply providing security. Will wants no part in changing the sweet and lovely Annie, but he can't bring himself to say no to her request. So he officially agrees to teach her how to be the next leading lady of Rome, Kentucky, and find the love of her life, even if he doesn't believe in love himself. Between faking a relationship so the meddling town doesn't catch on to what's really happening on their practice dates, and tutoring lessons that convince Annie to add passion to her list of must-haves and mates, it doesn't take long for the lines of their friendship to blur. So this book sounds really good. There's really no way for me to avoid this light, is there? This book sounds really interesting, really like it's gonna be a fun ride. They seem like 2 very different people, and it seems like it's going to be a little bit of like a, what's that movie? She's All That? Is that what the movie's called? That movie, She's All That, which I actually have seen and I wasn't a huge fan of, but I like the idea of the premise. So who knows, I might really enjoy this book. Okay, so the next one is Painted Devils by Margaret Owen, and this one actually does not have a synopsis yet. And I'm guessing that it's because it's a sequel for the first book, which is The Little Thieves, and I loved it this year. One of my favorite books of the year, and I am just so excited about this sequel. I cannot explain it to you. The first book was so good. Little Thieves, if you haven't read it yet, was just so amazing, and it follows this protagonist who is kind of unlikable. She's not really like a good person all the time. She is, like the title says, a thief, and she's a really complicated, complex, layered character, and those are kind of my favorite kind of female main characters to follow. I love an unlikable female character, I love a complicated female character, and she is all of the above. So I highly, highly recommend picking up Little Thieves and then getting really excited for Painted Devils, which comes out May 16th, 2023. So as you can probably tell, it is a few hours later. I've already had dinner and now I am settling in with a glass of wine. So we are going to be finishing up this video. I know it's been a while. The lighting is very different. I'm so sorry. I wish that it could be better, but this is what we're dealing with today. So we left off on the book Heavenly Tyrant by Ziran J. Zhao, and this is the sequel to Iron Widow, which I read earlier in 2022 and I absolutely loved. It was so good, and the sequel comes out August 29th, 2023, which is quite a few months away. I'm a little bummed that it's not coming out earlier, but I totally get it. It's not that big of a deal and I can totally deal with it. I will probably have to reacquaint myself with Iron Widow before going into Heavenly Tyrant, because it will have been like a year and a half since I'd read that book by the time that the second one comes out. So yeah, we're definitely gonna have to do a little bit of reacquainting, maybe a little bit of rereading, and I mean, I'm sure it'll be fun because I absolutely loved the first book. The next book on this list is another YA book, and this one is a fantasy, and it's called Court of the Undying Seasons by A.M. Strickland, who is an author that I would really love to get into more because I think I own one of their books, and I don't believe I've read another one. I can't remember. No, I don't believe that I have read another book from this author, but it says, an author who shall not be named. No, it is not the transphobic author, it is the other problematic author. Meets a deadly education in A.M. Strickland's lush, queer, YA dark fantasy novel. So many good buzzwords for me. Lush, queer, dark fantasy sounds really good. It says, in becoming a vampire, I'm less than a girl and more. Or maybe I'm becoming what I always have been deep inside, a blade. When 19-year-old Finn volunteers to take her secret love's place in their village's finding, she is terrified. Those who are chosen at the finding are whisked away to Castle Quartzheart. That's a really hard word to say, especially as one word. It's Quartzheart? Quartzheart. A vampire school where human students either succeed and become vampires, fail and spend the rest of their lives as human thralls, or they don't survive long enough to become either. Finn is determined to forge a different path. Learn how to kill the undead and get revenge for her mother, who was taken by the vampires years ago. But Quartzheart is as captivating as it is deadly, and Finn is quickly swept in her new world and its inhabitants, particularly Gavron, her handsome and hostile vampire maker, whose blood is nothing short of intoxicating. As Finn begins to discover new aspects of her own identity and test her newfound powers, she stumbles across a string of murders that may be connected to a larger ritual, one with potentially lethal consequences for vampires and humans alike. Finn must uncover the truth and find the killer before she loses her life or betrays her own heart. So it's dark and romantic, and it's pitched as a modern take on classic vampire tropes, which will be really intriguing. Like I've said in the past, I'm not the biggest vampire fan, unfortunately, but I do like to try vampires out every once in a while, and I think that this one might be a really fun one to try because I have been really intrigued by A.M. Strickland's books in the past, and this one might be another one that I am intrigued by, but we'll just have to see. But so far it sounds really, really good, and the expected publication is May 16th, 2023. The second to last book on this list is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi, and this one, the expected publication is February 14th, 2023. and it says, a sumptuous Gothic-infused story about a marriage that is unraveled by dark secrets, a friendship cursed to end in tragedy, and the danger of believing in fairy tales. And this is the adult debut from Roshni Chokshi, and I am so excited. I've actually never read a book from her, which is so surprising to me because her books always seem really intriguing to me, but then I never end up picking them up. So if you are a really big fan of Roshni Chokshi and you love her books, definitely recommend me one of her books that I should start off with, maybe even before I pick up this one. So definitely let me know. And it says, once upon a time, a man who believed in fairy tales married a beautiful, mysterious woman named Indigo Maxwell Castaneda. He was a scholar of myths. She was heiress to a fortune. They exchanged gifts and stories and believed they would live happily ever after. And in exchange for her love, Indigo extracted a promise that her bridegroom would never pry into her past. But when Indigo learns that her estranged aunt is dying and the couple is forced to return to her childhood home, the House of Dreams, the bridegroom will soon find himself unable to resist. For within the crumbling manor's extravagant rooms and musty halls, there lurks the shadow of another girl, Azure, Indigo's dearest childhood friend who suddenly disappeared. As the house slowly reveals his wife's secrets, the bridegroom will be forced to choose between reality and fantasy, even if doing so threatens to destroy their marriage or their lives. Wow, this sounds really good. Also, it says, combining the lush, haunting atmosphere of Mexican Gothic with the dreamy enchantment of the invisible life of Addie LaRue, The Last Tale of the Flower Bride is a spellbinding and darkly romantic page-turner about love and lies, secrets and betrayal, and the stories we tell ourselves to survive. I am so absolutely excited about this book just from that alone. I love both Mexican Gothic and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, two of my favorite books of all time. So I think I'm really going to enjoy this book so much. And the very last book on this list for part 2 is Just As You Are by Camille Kellogg. And the expected publication of this book is April 25th, 2023. And this one is a romance, it's queer, it follows these lesbian characters, which is always super exciting to me to find some more lesbian romance. And it says, equal parts witty and steamy, this debut rom-com brings a healthy dose of queerness and a whole lot of heart to a Pride and Prejudice-inspired enemies to lovers romance. The only thing worse than hating your boss, being attracted to her. Liz Baker and her 3 roommates work at the Netherfields, a queer magazine in New York that's on the verge of shutting down, until it's bought at the last minute by 2 wealthy lesbians. Liz knows she's lucky to still have a paycheck, but it's hard to feel grateful with minority investor Daria Fitzgerald slashing budgets. It's hard to see without my glasses that far. I almost said Darla. It's Daria. Canceling Bagel Fridays and password protecting the color printer to prevent frivolous use. When Liz overhears Daria scoffing at her listicles, she knows that it's only a matter of time before her impulsive mouth gets her fired. But as Liz and Daria wind up having to spend more and more time together, Liz starts to see a softer side to Daria. She's funny, thoughtful, and likes the way Liz's gender presentation varies between butch and femme. Despite the evidence that Liz can't trust her, it's hard to keep hating Daria, and even harder to resist the chemistry between them. This page-turning, sexy, and delightful funny rom-com celebrates queer culture, chosen family, and falling in love against your better judgment. This one sounds so good, so romantic, so steamy, and I love that it's kind of like a new twist on Pride and Prejudice. I love retellings of any kind, especially ones that are queer. And I think with Jane Austen, her books are so much fun to adapt into like a more contemporary setting. I mean, I'm looking at Emma Approved and the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. Those are 2 of my favorite like YouTube series, I guess. And they just do such a good job at adapting Jane Austen books into a contemporary setting, and so I also really appreciate when books do the same thing, and I think that this one is going to be really good. Alright, so those are all of the books for part 2 of the new releases that I'm really excited about for 2023. I feel like this year is going to have a lot of really interesting books. These ones I'm so much more excited for compared to the new releases of 2022. Like last year, I didn't even bother making a video for the new releases of 2022 because overall I just like wasn't super excited about any of them. I didn't really have my eye on any of them necessarily, so I think that 2023 is going to be such a fun year, and I'm so excited to see what these books are going to be all about, and if I'm going to like them, if I'm not going to like them, I don't know, we're going to see. So if you got to the end of the video, if you made it this far, leave down below the book stack emoji. I would love to see those in the comment section, and I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Storygraph, TikTok. All the links will be down below, and please don't forget that I'm going to be making a part 3 for this video, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye! Ooh,